This is another video on health and actors from the 90s and all that, or 80s, or maybe, I don't know. Michael J. Fox has new health problems. As we all know, he has, is it Parkinson's? Parkinson's. He's 57. He underwent spinal surgery. Okay, let me see, he went through spinal injury in April. Okay, because he kept having diminished feelings in his legs and difficulty moving. And then he'd start failing. I don't know what that means, failing. I guess maybe not being able to walk at all. Let me see, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 1991. Where he would have jerks or tremors as a side effect of the Parkinson's. And then he was trying to parse what was the Parkinson's and what was the spinal thing. I don't know what parse means. I'm just reading this as I'm reading this here. Okay, but following his spinal cord surgery, I guess to help with his lower body, he was in a wheelchair and he went through an intense amount of physical therapy to regain his strength. But he had another fall. He was supposed to start acting again in August, but he had another fall. Okay, that's probably what it means by failing. The surgery, was it the surgery that kept failing, or it's just a spinal cord? Okay, so going back to what it was saying, he was having a recurring problem with his spinal cord, and he was told it was benign, but if it stayed static, like if it didn't progress, I'm assuming, that he would have a diminished feeling in his legs and difficulty moving. But then all of a sudden he started failing. Okay. So it started getting worse and like nothing happening to his lower body. Okay. And then, so he had a fall, which hurt his confidence, so he couldn't begin acting in August. Okay, this happened when he woke up, went into the kitchen to get breakfast, misstepped, and then he went down. He fractured the hell out of his arm and ended up getting 19 pins and a plate. Okay, wow. I think I mentioned in one of my videos where I fell down the stairs about a few weeks ago, because I was so out of it, walking down the stairs to get out of my place to go to the gym, but I wasn't completely awake, I wasn't paying attention, and there was one step left at the bottom of the stairwell, and I forgot about it, and all of a sudden I was on my hands and knees, but I didn't break my arm. I mean, that must have been a huge fall. I thought I would break my knees, but I was awake, but I was waking up from that, but this guy broke all these And so he said the fall gave him a new perspective on his health. He says he tries not to get too new agey, doesn't even talk about things things being for a reason. But I do think the more unexpected something is, the more there is to learn from it, he said. In my case, what was it that made me skip down the hallway to the kitchen thinking I was fine when I'd been in a wheelchair 6 months earlier? Oh, that was a question he's asking. What was it that made him skip down the hallway when he was in a wheelchair 6 months earlier? Okay. It's because he had a certain amount of optimistic expectations of himself, and he had results to bear out those expectations. But I had failures too, and I hadn't given the failures equal weight. Okay, so yeah, I'm all for optimism, but sometimes realism needs to be looked at. You know, there was a former bodybuilder who named Leroy Colbert. He had a YouTube channel, and he was in his 80s. Actually, it was someone running it. My Yorkie dog lover or something. The thing that really saddens me about that is that he was on all magazines when I was a kid. And he had a mouth on YouTube criticizing everyone. It was terrible. But I guess sometimes that's what happens as you get older. You kind of get cranky and bitchy and all that stuff. And some people liked him, but not enough, because because of his not being pragmatic and not thinking about the future. He had a supplement shop, and he made a lot of money, and he spent it all. He didn't think to save it, and he ended up doing his last days in Las Vegas as opposed to Los Angeles or New York, where he was from. But he did Las Vegas, New York, then he went to Los Angeles or somewhere in that LA County. And then he had to live in Las Vegas because it was cheaper in this home, or like public housing or something like that, that was real cheap. And he fell, and he cracked his head open, and he died on the floor in his own blood, pretty much, from what I remember. My mother fell also. That's how a lot of older people die, they fall. And with this guy Leroy, there was no one there for me. He didn't have anyone. He didn't have a wife or husband, but he didn't have a wife because you wouldn't expect him in the relationship because he was too stubborn, you know. It's just like, he didn't work on himself. That's what I'm trying to say, you know. And then you end up thinking he was boasting that he was one of the bodybuilders that are living for a lot longer than every other bodybuilder that dies of steroid use, because he had not done steroids, and he was using that as his badge of honor. And then he goes and he cracks his head open and dies. And when that happened, the guy who was running the YouTube channel was trying to raise money for his burial, and he couldn't raise enough. No one would pitch it. That sucks. And it's sad. And hopefully things can be learned from that, you know. So, I think it's important. I mean, that's one of my fears, to be able to fall, crack my head, and just slowly die. You know, because no one's here. No one will find me till a few days later when it starts to stench in here, you know. So, working on fitness is important to me in the sense that balance, you know, lower body strength, reaction time, stuff like that is important to me. It always has been. I was at my peak when I was diving and I did gymnastics and stuff, but if you don't use it, you lose it. It has nothing to do with aging. It has to do with you not doing something in particular that gets you at the peak of your reaction time and your balance and your proprioception, as we say. So I think that's very important, and at least Michael is taking that into consideration. Sometimes it takes something to learn from it. He's not dead, and then I could do the same thing for, my businesses. You learn from something harsh, and so that's the takeaway. Try to learn something from it, and be open to working on those things that you would see as benign in order to get yourself into a state to have a better quality of life. Because it's not about getting older. My father was 98 when he died. Technically he was like 95, but on his birth certificate it was 3 years older, because in the Holocaust he had to lie about his age so he can go into the army and all that crap. But the point being, he was pretty much dead many decades ago. He came to Canada. That's not life. So that's something I'm trying to work out of. Live your life, improve yourself, get yourself to a state where you feel like living and you feel like doing stuff, and enjoying life. That's all I have to say.